We're swimming in a sea of information, and we no longer have any external fail-safe ways to tell which one is true and which one is not. Unless you develop an internal guidance, or I should say, and unless you connect with your internal guidance, there are no ways. I cannot give you anything out there that you can say, oh, this is fake. It's easy to blame AI. AI is just a tool, and it has leveled the field for everybody and their baby cousin to go out there and create. And in my experience, AI or not, there's always a human behind any creation, and that human dictates what the narrative is. You don't have to believe in conspiracies to recognize that anybody who is making a living from their creation cannot 100% be relied to tell you the truth. It sounds so sordid when I say it, but hear me out. It's not that they don't want to tell you the truth. It's called a conflict of interest. If they're making their living from their creation, they will always feel the pressure to create something that pleases the reader, the viewer, that doesn't offend the internet censors or whoever they are, gatekeepers. You get my point. There are people who are more creative and more truthful, and I don't want this to be a dismissal of all, but more as a guardrail for you. Do not take or accept anything for granted, which circles back to how to get in touch with your internal system. So I want to give you a couple of options here from different levels: mind, emotions, body, subtle energies. You pick whichever you want. You can use all four, of course. Whichever speaks to you. I shift depending on my mood, but most of the time I rely on all four ways. So starting from the mind level, from the thought, we are never tricked. And this is where we have to kick the victimhood mentality. You're not a victim. Nobody's out there to get you. It's a one gigantic ego plot to keep us distracted and always chasing something on the external, so that we never pause and start really looking for our solutions where they belong, on the internal side. And so here's the one trick, or one way for me to deal with all the illusion, lies, subterfuge, or whatever is out there nowadays. I pause and I tell myself, I want the truth. I want to see the truth. I do not want to be lied. And look, this is where you work at the deepest level. And because it's the deepest level, that might take the longest for you to finally see how powerful this is. When you say, I want to see the truth in this situation. And it might take you years of practice before you catch on to that. So it's very easy to dismiss simply because it's so deep, deep, deep into the inner realms. But do it because it doesn't cost you anything. The most powerful time actually is at night before you fall asleep, to say, I want to see the truth, and then wake up. It becomes a very powerful intent. You can also do it around new moon, because that is where we are all most susceptible to these intentions. And so check when the next new moon is going to be in the sky, and mark those 3 days around the new moon, before, on, and after new moon, on your calendar. and do an experiment. It takes only 3 nights before falling asleep to say, I want to see the truth, and see what happens. Because this solution is on the deepest inner levels, it is not so obvious to see. So you might want to try some other solutions that are coming from the lower levels of existence. So I'll just give you the next one. The next one comes from astrology, which is kind of like the lower mental levels, the patterns. Pull out your astrological chart and find what energy sits in your 8th house. I like to use the whole sign division of houses, makes life simple. And I like to start with simplicity. We are after the big effects. And yes, you can find some complicated and very complex ways to divide your chart. And the astrologers invent ever new ways to extract more information from the chart. But this in calculus and conventional science is called stick with the orders of magnitude. Catch the big fish, then the smaller fish, then the even smaller fish. So the biggest fish here is take your chart, look at the energy on the 8th house. The 8th house is the aspect of your life that relates to the existential truths. And the energy in that house tells you your approach to that, how you reach out, how you search for those truths, how you find those truths. And don't expect something very linear and direct. It's not like I go there and there's a big sign, this is your truth. No, for instance, my 8th house energy is Taurus. And I don't identify with that energy because I have not a single planet there. Most of my planets are elsewhere, so I tend to identify with other energies. And it took me a very long time, and I helped from my personal intuitive counselor who said, I don't know anything about astrology, but why am I hearing Taurus? Go there and see what it is. Yes, they have helped me a lot to actually understand the astrology of my chart. But hear me out. I go out there in my backyard and I have a flower bed. Again, I don't identify with Taurus. Taurus is about growing, about being in nature, understanding animals, being that type of person. My grandmother probably arguably was the epitome of the Taurian energy, who was always outside in her garden, watching her grapes, taking care of the potatoes, having like 10 fruit trees, having tomatoes and peppers and everything there. And she, as long as the earth produced, she said, we have everything. Never mind that I actually helped her pay her electric bills, but electricity is a totally different story, right? That's more Uranian and comes. I identified more with Uranian energies. But anyway, but here's the thing. I spent an hour in my flower bed. Simple things. Weed, just admire my bright red geraniums. And then I come back home and I'm centered. I can see through the lies. I can turn on the TV or I can go to YouTube or social media and start listening to those people, and they don't disturb me anymore. You see, you put together, because the energy on your 8th house not only helps you see the truth, but actually is your organic innate courage is connected to that. Not like I'm going to be courageous. No, you are. It helps you connect with that energy that you just be yourself. There's the truth, authentic self, more truth. Face your fears, a lot of courage to see that there's nothing there. Again, the truth. So all those aspects actually govern and ruled by the energy, by your 8th house, and the way you approach them or the way you get to your truth is through that energy. Now, I know a person who identifies with the Taurus, and they say, and day in and day out, they go to work. It's like, I'm a Taurus. I like to do this, and I like to grow. They have many more flowers than me. It's always about doing work. And you know what? Taurus energy doesn't help them get to their truth because it's not in their eighth house. In fact, I pointed out to them that the eighth house energy is actually Cancer. Cancer wants to be cozy next to water, kind of have your nest the way you can feel safe. So I told them, look, go take a bath, put little candles around your bath tub if you have space, take a glass of wine. That's the coziness of Cancer. They were shocked. It's like, really? Because the whole conversation started because they heard my story about my flowers, and they said, I just spent an hour there and I'm still mad and angry. They were doing garden work, and the reason is because they're falling back to their comfort zone, to the way they go out and present themselves to the world, the way how they go and do their work at their job. And yes, that's where Taurus is for them, in the 6th house of job and service, but not the 8th house. And so even though it was really great energy to go and do work and succeed, and they're successful in their career, conventional career, really, it was not bringing them that sense of, I am put together, I am being my authentic self, I know who I am, I can see the truth through all this drama around me, I can face anything, I'm not a victim. So all those things are there in your 8th house. So there are 2 examples so that you can see how the energy on the 8th house can help you. But at the same time, don't get locked too much into my example, because this is one of those cases that everybody has their own solution. So go there and find which energy is there. If you need help, I do monthly cycles labs. So go on my website and look at the schedule for our next upcoming labs. That's the best time to pop in and ask you questions. I'll help you out to get you started so you can actually go and do it by yourself. The next level is the level of the subtle energies. And this is where my energy practices come into play. I like to do Qigong. I've done Tai Chi occasionally. And in the last 10, actually almost 15 years, I have practiced an energy healing art that is called Jin Shin Jyutsu. It is very similar to Reiki, but it has structure and it aligns with philosophy. It originates from yoga and it aligns very closely to traditional Chinese medicine in terms of having meridians where you can actually place your hands. So you place your hands just like in Reiki, if you're familiar with that, very light. And so here is a flow from Jin Shin Jyutsu that always keeps me centered. And I have talked to many other students of Jin Shin Jyutsu, and they validated and confirmed the same experience. You're going to place your right hand here on top of the head and the left here at your forehead. I get tired because I like to hold this for 10, 15, 20 minutes. So sometimes I do it lying in bed. If I'm at home and I can take like a 20-minute break in the middle of the day, put some pillows under my arms and do it. This will actually bring effect even in 3 minutes. So if you can hold it in 3 minutes, sitting here in your car like this, it won't be so obvious. I'm so addicted to the obvious, floating. I feel really great, out of this world. But the effect is there, even if you don't notice it, because I can do this for 3 minutes and then I can go and have a meeting now with my colleagues and I'll be much more centered, eyes on the ball, not distracted, really focused. This is the goal for today. Let's see what moves us along that goal, and then let's get out of it here. You see, you put together your inside you, and I would normally say grounded, but given that our earth right now is going through a transformation, and so our earth itself is probably a little bit unsettled during that transformation, we might be actually better off by simply going inside us, right? Connecting with our source rather than grounding ourselves. But that's a topic for another video. So this is one way also to get yourself centered, because when you're centered, you're strong in your core, you're in touch with your core. Nobody can trick you, nobody can convince you to go and do things against your better judgment. You're already in touch with your truth, with your own truth. So that is the solution from Jin Shin Jyutsu that I like very much. This is actually the anchor step for a sequence that is called the harmonizing of the main central universal vertical energy. It has several more steps, and you can find them on my website that I maintain with Jin Shin Jyutsu and astrology resources. That is called Traveler's Guide to Healing. I'll put a link to that website so you can find the full sequence. Some people do it with 6 steps, others do 7 steps, the variations. This is where you can actually play, but my goal is to get you started, obviously, and to emphasize that sometimes doing more steps doesn't make it more powerful. I have the most powerful experiences by simply holding this for a long time. And sometimes when I'm really tired, and again, this could get tiring very quickly, and especially if you're recovering from illness and you're still not quite, strong, an easier way is just to simply place your right hand on your upper chest and your left hand on your lower chest, like this, like lower at the rib cage, and just rest. So that's an easy way to also reach and harmonize that energy, subtle energy that helps us connect with our core, with our source, with our authentic self. So that way we are strong. We have that center from which we can go out and say, this is not true. Yes, this is good for me, and this does not serve me. And the last level is the physical level. On the physical level, you have to become aware of your body sensations and feel how your body feels and reacts. Let's say you're watching the news and they say, oh, there's this big development. If you feel fear, if you feel coldness in the body, nausea, dizzy, it's not good. That is not the truth. The truth is never that way. Most likely someone is playing, or you're playing tricks on yourself to stay in fearful, angry, anxious states where you are distracting yourself and playing a victim of this world. If something feels uplifting, warm, usually I feel it in my chest area, spreading throughout my body. If I feel light, if I feel suddenly enthusiastic about doing things, about my life, or sometimes I even feel like energetic. It's like, oh, I'm gonna go and get this thing done, something that I have been sitting on forever, procrastinating. Then it's your truth. And remember, there are many truths, because we live in a subjective world. You live in your own field, and the truth is for you. Some truth could be truth for you now, but if you transform 10 years from today, other things will be the truth for you, and this will no longer serve you. So don't get too hung up on absolute truths. You need your truth now that serves you the best. And so that is how you can actually find it and see it. Needless to say, you don't need to worry whether that truth came in the form of someone who used AI tool. If it resonates, if it uplifts you, makes you enthusiastic, you kick in that silly victimhood mentality, you are suddenly optimistic and you say, okay, I'm gonna go and get this thing done. Okay. If you have concerns, sleep on that. don't act on those ideas immediately, right? Remember, you can sleep on it. Tonight, you tell yourself, I want to see the truth. Wait for 3 days. See how it is. If in 3 days, the enthusiasm not only doesn't diminish, but it gets bigger and you see more reasons why this is good for you, there it is. You just have to be patient and try and see which ones of those 4 levels works for you at this time, right? At this time. At another time, it might be something else. Or it could be a combination of those 4. That is what I do, really.